The crimson lemon tree. There was a town called Blackwood Creek, a place hidden deep within the sprawling woods that few dared to seek out. The town was ancient, nearly swallowed by time, wrapped in legends and whispered tales of unsettling events. No one knew the exact reason, but it was said that those who left Blackwood Creek never returned, and those who remained lived in a state of quiet dread, their eyes always darting toward the forest as if fearing something lurking among the trees. But the villagers' deepest terror was reserved for the ancient lemon tree that stood in the heart of the town's square. The tree was gnarled and twisted, its branches heavy with yellow lemons that no one ever touched. Some claimed the tree was cursed, others believed it held the souls of the disappeared. On certain nights, when the wind blew just right, you could hear the tree creak as if it were whispering secrets to anyone brave or foolish enough to listen. Chloe, a young woman with a thirst for adventure, arrived in the town one stormy evening. She was a traveler, drawn by the strange stories she had heard about Blackwood Creek. Unlike the locals, she didn't believe in curses or dark spirits. She was fearless, or so she convinced herself. The night she arrived, the air grew heavy, and the sky turned dark with an unnatural speed. The villagers warned her about the approaching blood moon. "Stay inside tonight," an old woman named Martha whispered, her voice trembling. "Do not go near the lemon tree. It's hungry tonight." Chloe simply laughed it off. It's just a tree, she thought. How dangerous could a lemon tree possibly be? As the blood moon rose, casting long, crimson shadows over the town, Chloe felt an odd, irresistible pull toward the town square. The tree stood there, its branches swaying in the wind, but there was something wrong with their movement. They seemed to be reaching out, almost as if they were alive. Against her better judgment, Chloe walked closer. The lemons hanging from the branches were glowing with a faint red light, almost pulsing. Her curiosity getting the better of her, she reached up, her fingers trembling, and plucked one of the lemons from a low-hanging branch. The moment her skin touched the fruit, a sharp, searing pain shot through her hand, as if the tree itself had bitten her. Startled, she dropped the lemon. But as it hit the cobblestones, it didn't roll away like a normal piece of fruit. Instead, it burst open, spilling thick, dark blood onto the ground. Chloe gasped and stumbled back, her heart pounding in her chest. The blood began to spread unnaturally, moving toward her feet as if it had a life of its own. She tried to back away, but the blood formed into twisted shapes, faces screaming silently, their mouths wide open in terror. Suddenly, a voice came from behind her. "You shouldn't have touched it." She spun around, but no one was there. The town square was empty, silent except for the howling wind. But the voice persisted, now seeming to come from all around her, from the shadows themselves. "Why did you touch it?" Her breath quickened as fear finally gripped her. She ran back to the inn where she was staying, slamming the door shut behind her. Her hand throbbed, still aching from the burn of the lemon. She looked down and saw a strange red mark staining her palm, a shape like a twisted vine curling around her wrist. It pulsed faintly, as if it had its own heartbeat. Chloe's heart hammered against her ribs. She paced the small room, trying to rationalize what had just happened. The lemon, the blood, the whispers. It had to be a trick, her mind playing games with her. She glanced out the window, but what she saw made her blood run cold. The lemon tree seemed to have moved. Its branches were no longer contained to the square. They were now pressing up against the window of her room, scratching at the glass like long, bony fingernails. The lemons hung there, swaying gently, glowing with a deep, dark red. And then, from the center of the largest lemon, an eye opened, staring straight at her. Panicked, she backed away from the window, her heart pounding in her ears. The scratching grew louder, more insistent. The branches began to push harder against the window, cracking the glass. Suddenly, she heard a low, guttural growl from the hallway outside her door. She turned toward the sound, her hands trembling as she gripped a small kitchen knife she had found earlier. The door slowly creaked open, revealing nothing but darkness on the other side. But the growling continued, echoing from the shadows. "Chloe!" The voice was different now, deeper and more sinister. It was coming closer. Chloe stepped back, her mind racing. She had to leave, to get out of this cursed town. But just as she turned to run, the door slammed shut with a deafening bang, and the lights flickered and died. The shadows in the corners of the room began to shift and twist, forming long, slender figures that crept toward her, their hollow eyes staring through her soul. Desperate, she ran for the back door, but before she could reach it, she felt something cold and strong wrap around her ankle. She looked down and screamed. A braid of hair, long and black, had slithered out from under the bed and was now wrapping tightly around her leg, pulling her down. She slashed at it with the knife, but it only seemed to tighten its grip, dragging her closer to the shadows. The whispers returned, louder now, more urgent. "Give it back, give it back." The room began to spin, her vision blurring as the air grew thick with the smell of decay. She could hear footsteps now, slow and deliberate, coming from behind her. She turned, her blood turning to ice. Standing in the doorway was a woman, but not a living one. Her skin was pale and stretched tightly over her bones, her eyes sunken and lifeless. She wore a long, tattered white dress stained with blood. Her lips were cracked and dry, but when she spoke, her voice was filled with a cold rage. "You took my lemon." Chloe tried to scream, but no sound came out. The woman stepped closer, her long hair dragging behind her, twisted into endless braids. In her hand, she held a knife, its blade dripping with something dark, too dark to be just blood. "You took my life." Chloe backed against the wall, her heart about to burst. The woman's eyes were fixed on her, unblinking, unfeeling. Slowly, she raised the knife. "You will give it back." Before Chloe could react, the remaining lights went out, plunging the room into complete darkness. The only sound was the soft, rhythmic tapping of the knife against the floor, growing louder and louder as the woman moved closer. Then a chilling whisper echoed through the room, barely audible but clear enough to send shivers down Chloe's spine. "Run." But where could she run? The tree was alive, the house was filled with shadows and whispers, and now this ghostly figure was hunting her. There was nowhere to go, nowhere to hide. Chloe stood frozen, her back pressed against the cold wall. The darkness around her felt alive, thick with fear. The only sound was the slow, deliberate tapping of the knife as the woman drew nearer and nearer. "Run," the voice had whispered, but where could she go? Just as Chloe took a hesitant step forward, her foot landed on something cold and wet. She looked down in the faint moonlight filtering through the cracked window, and her blood ran cold. The floor was covered in blood, spreading out from where the woman stood, as if it were flowing directly from the ghostly figure. The woman's hollow, dead eyes locked onto Chloe's. She raised her knife slowly, the metal glinting with a sickening red light as it dripped with more of that thick, dark liquid. "You took my lemon. You took my soul," the woman hissed, her voice a mix of rage and sorrow. "Now you must pay." Chloe backed away, her breathing shallow. The room seemed to close in around her, the shadows stretching longer and longer, creeping up the walls like living things. Every corner was filled with darkness, and from within that darkness, figures began to emerge, twisted, deformed shapes with eyes that glowed faintly in the blackness. They were the souls of those who had vanished in the town, drawn to the lemon tree, forever trapped. And now they were coming for her. Chloe gripped the knife she held, her hand trembling. But what good was a knife against ghosts, against a curse that held an entire town? She turned toward the door, her only hope for escape. But the moment she reached for the handle, the door swung open on its own, revealing a narrow hallway that hadn't been there before. It was lined with mirrors, each one cracked and covered in a thick layer of dust. As Chloe stepped closer, she saw her reflection in the nearest mirror, and the sight made her gasp. It wasn't her. The face staring back had her features, but its skin was pale, its eyes wide and hollow, and its mouth was twisted into a silent scream. The figure in the mirror slowly raised a hand, pressing it against the glass as if trying to escape. "Help me," it mouthed, though no sound came out. Chloe turned away, her heart racing, but as she did, the other mirrors began to rattle and shake. Each one was filled with a different reflection, the faces of the lost, all trapped, all begging to be freed. Their hands pounded on the glass, their mouths opened in soundless screams, their eyes pleading for a salvation that would never come. The hallway began to twist and turn, the walls closing in as Chloe moved forward, her breath coming in short, sharp gasps. The mirrors stretched into infinity, each one showing her a different nightmare, a different version of herself, distorted and broken. Suddenly, she heard the footsteps behind her again, slow and deliberate, each one echoing louder than the last. She didn't dare look back, but she knew who it was, the woman with the knife. The braids of hair began to snake along the floor again, reaching for her, wrapping around her legs, trying to pull her down. Chloe broke into a run, the mirrors shattering as she passed, glass raining down around her. The hallway stretched on, endless, with no doors, no windows, just more mirrors and more screaming reflections. But then, at the very end of the hallway, she saw it, a door. A way out. She sprinted toward it, her heart pounding in her chest. But just as she reached for the handle, something cold grabbed her wrist. She spun around. There, standing behind her, was the woman, her dead eyes staring straight into Chloe's soul. Her grip was like ice, freezing Chloe's skin, and her face twisted into a cruel smile. "You can't leave," the woman whispered, her voice like nails on glass. "You belong to the tree now." Chloe struggled, but the woman's grip tightened. The knife in her other hand gleamed in the faint light, the blade stained with the blood of countless souls. The braids of hair wrapped around Chloe's ankles, pulling her down to the floor, dragging her back toward the shadows. But Chloe wasn't ready to give up. With a sudden burst of strength, she slashed at the braids with her own knife, cutting through the thick strands of hair. The woman screamed, a high-pitched, ear-shattering sound that echoed through the hallway, shaking the very walls. The braids loosened their grip, and Chloe broke free, stumbling toward the door. She threw it open and slammed it shut behind her, locking the horror away. Or so she thought. On the other side of the door was no safety, no escape. Instead, she found herself standing in the town square again. But something was terribly wrong. The town was empty, the houses were crumbling, the streets were overgrown with vines, and the air was thick with the stench of death. And there, in the center of the square, stood the lemon tree. But now it was much larger, its branches twisted and blackened, reaching high into the sky. The lemons that hung from its branches were no longer yellow, but a deep blood red, each one pulsing like a beating heart. The ground beneath the tree was soaked with blood, and the air buzzed with the low hum of whispers. Chloe stepped closer, drawn to the tree against her will. As she approached, she saw something moving among the branches, faces, twisted and deformed, staring down at her from within the leaves. The souls of the lost, trapped forever within the cursed tree. Suddenly, the ground beneath her feet began to shake. The tree's roots burst from the earth, twisting and curling, reaching for her like skeletal hands. Chloe tried to run, but the roots were too fast. They wrapped around her legs, pulling her toward the tree, toward its dark, hungry maw. She screamed, but no one was there to hear her. The whispers grew louder, filling her ears, her mind, her soul. The faces in the tree watched her with hollow eyes, their mouths opening in silent screams. The tree was alive, and it wanted her. The branches reached down, their gnarled fingers wrapping around her body, pulling her closer and closer to the trunk. The bark split open, revealing a dark, pulsing core, and from within, the woman's voice echoed one last time. "Give it back." Chloe's heart pounded in her chest as the tree's branches pulled her closer to the gaping hole in its trunk. The whispers became deafening, a chorus of damned voices all demanding the same thing. "Give it back, give it back." Suddenly, the tree split open even wider, revealing a dark, empty void within. Chloe screamed as the branches wrapped around her arms and legs, pulling her inside, dragging her into the endless darkness. And then there was only silence,